Hello and welcome to Morning Call for Wednesday, the 28th of August, 2019. I'm Fab. I am coming to you from Hamburg, where all the blinds are down because it's incredibly sunny. Let's have a look at what's happened since we came together yesterday to talk about some tech news. So, let's see what we have. So at first, Michael Dell, who owns Dell Computers, of course, which also owns VMware, um, was on stage as part of the VMware 2019 conference in San Francisco, and they were talking about, among other things, the trade war. I think this was like a panel, and being asked by a Chinese journalist how like the whole import and export restrictions would affect like Dell's business in China. He basically talked about the business and said, well, we got lots of business in China, and it's really important to us. Our most important um, priority was making sure our supply lines all work, and he says we got that down. But then he also found some clear words. He basically said, "We will continue to speak with government officials to continue to work together to find a successful solution. We don't find these tensions to be productive for our business," which makes sense. And then he also, interestingly, kind of alleged that there is pressure going on behind the scenes in the US on the administration by business people to stop this crap, um, and to let them have business in a way that works without this politicizing bullshit. And I mean, if you look at it, it seems to have some effect. I mean, Trump's continually pushing back those deadlines, and I think they're realizing that this was not exactly a smart move, and that the Chinese economy is probably more resilient against this kind of stuff than the US one. I mean, one of the things, Trump has recently said that. I mean, he says it about everybody. He says about the EU stealing money from the US, but specifically about China. He talked about the copyright infringement stuff and how much money U.S. companies have lost there. And while that is true. I mean, there's lots of copyright infringement going on. Lots of Chinese companies basically do not give a damn about U.S. copyrights and stuff. But the thing with that is like if you have two countries and one is like adhering to copyright and the other one isn't, the other one isn't caring about these laws, it's kind of easy to see who's winning if it comes to all out war, right? Because if you're adhering to laws, you have to both agree on the laws. If you don't, you can just, do whatever you want. And when you're in a war anyway, all's fair in love and war and all that. So I don't know. As China also, with China being the production center, seems to be on the sitting at the longer. Can you say that? Is that in Germany we say am längeren Hebel sitzen. They're on the at longer lever. They've got more leverage basically. So well, we'll see. I like that Dell's talking sense. Yeah, I don't know. I kind of like the guy. He's like from all of those business executives. Whenever he's like saying something, he seems to be like pretty down to earth for a billionaire. Quite reasonable. Um, in Germany, we've had this year we've had the e-scooter epidemic. E-scooters have been made legal, and I was last year. I was in San Diego, and I saw like all these e-scooters there, and it was kind of amazing to me. And then like a few months later, they legalized them in Germany, and now they're here everywhere. Of course, in Germany, they have to have like little teeny license plates They're actually not license plates; they're insurance plates, but little teeny stickers, which is funny. But aside from all the obvious discussion about are they actually helping with CO2 emissions, and does it actually is this actually worth it? There was an interesting report came out now that Golem is talking about here on by one of the German um, the German Federal Association of all those. We have these consumer rights groups. I've talked about them before. Verbraucherzentralen, very German thing. They're like kind of like a um, I guess in the US there would be a 501c3. They're kind of like in the public interest, and they're supposed to help consumers. And they basically looked at how these terms of services for these e-scooters are, and they're horrible compared to like cars. If you're renting a car, so there's all this kind of stuff. So basically, when you install an app and you start using it, you obviously agree to all these terms of services, and they basically say, well, you're liable for everything. Like something happens to that thing, even if it's not your fault, we'll still hold you liable. We'll just deduct the money from your account. Like if the scooter goes missing, if you rent it, and we might not even we're not able to prove that you threw it in the river, but you're the last one using it, so you're gonna pay for it. Basically that kind of thing. And the Verbraucherzentralen basically said, the companies they said are doing this stuff which shouldn't really be happening, is Jump Bicycles, Cirque, Lime, and Tier Mobility, and VOY Technology Switzerland. See, the Swiss, they're ripping us off. There's ICWIC behind this. Are you listening, ICWIC? We're aware of that. So basically, this is, you see this pattern over and over again, right? You have these startups, and they're not established businesses, not like car rental, which has been around for ages, which is regulated and stuff. And they have all these ideas. They're like, oh no, we can just make the customer liable for everything, and then you'll have a period where they'll try it, and then it'll go to court, and then there'll be lawsuits, and basically in the end they'll figure out, well, we really can't do that. We really have to behave like all the other companies as well. And it's the Verbraucherzentralen are quite nice because they will actually sue on behalf of consumers, and even before that, they will have stuff like this, they'll analyze this stuff and put out press releases and stuff, so it's pretty cool. ASCII says that's our job. Oh, there's more Swiss. Jesus, the whole chat is full of Swiss people. That is kind of your job, isn't it? And you're good at it. I'm just envious. Yeah, so just be aware if you're using one of these scooters. Just be aware of that. I find these things are ridiculously big. When you first see them, you think like they're, like the scooters. You think like they're the scooters you had as a kid, the push scooters, right? And then you see one of those, and it's basically 10 times the size. You're like, what? What's going on? But of course, it's got an engine and all of that. Got an electric engine and all the batteries and lights and whatever. Yeah. Don't really see the point. All the people I see, quick e-scooter rant, all the people I see using e-scooters, they're basically using them over the distances that I'm just walking. So it's not like, if I go into town, right, I have a car, but, I'm in Hamburg, right? I'm not going to take the car into town. So I use public transport. So I walk, usually on the way out, it's pretty close. I walk like 2 minutes and I'm at the bus stop, take the bus to the subway, and then take the subway into town, come back on the subway, and on the way back I can't go the same way. I could, but like the connection is weird. Some of these, sometimes you have like public transport connections that are really good in one way and not good in the other, and that's not good in the other. And on the other way, so I arrive at the subway stop, and then either I wait and take a bus for about like 3 or 4 stops, and then walk for about like 2-3 minutes. But usually that bus like is in a 10-minute interval and is always gone when I get there. So I usually just walk that. Doesn't matter what the weather is or something, got clothes on. I'll walk that. And it'll usually take me a little bit longer than the bus usually overtakes me. So it takes me a bit more than 10 minutes to walk that. And these are like the distances I see people like using these e-scooters. And they're like, they're thinking it's good for the environment. I mean, what? I mean, just burn some calories, walk. It's not that bad, buy some proper shoes and walk. Anyway, it's my e-scooter rant. Speaking of old shoes, I loved the register. I had teaser image for this. So they were talking about Windows 7, and Windows 7 is going to reach end of life in about 5 months, I think. And there's, of course, a really expensive program. It's always been for Windows versions where you can pay Microsoft a lot of money and you'll still get updates for a few years. But it looks like some enterprise customers, so companies that are using Windows 10 Enterprise E5, Microsoft 65 E5, Microsoft 65 E5 Security, and Government E5 plans will be able to get this Windows 7 support free for a year. So they can use Windows 7 longer. So this is companies that already have like either Windows 10 licenses or Microsoft 365, I'm guessing, from the looks of this. So Windows 7 support officially ends January 14th, 2020, and they'll be able to be using it longer because they need time to switch because Windows 10 is horrible. I don't know. I never understood the Windows 10 is shit. I mean, Windows 8 was shit. That was like a shit interface, but Windows 10 is actually good. So it's a lot better than Windows 7. Like if I see people using Windows 7 these days, I'm like, you might as well be using Windows 95. That interface is just like, looks like it's from the past. Like, why? The German, what is this? The Deutsche Olympische Sportbund, the DOSB, the German Olympic Committee, has decided in a, their lawyers have written a Rechtsgutachten. I don't know, what is that? What is that in English? So this is English time with Fab. Let's look that up. Rechtsgutachten. Legal opinion. Okay, they've written a legal opinion saying that esports isn't sports because it all comes down to, so they're saying it's not sport in the sense of the current law because it's been established in the law that sports have there's like bodily fluids, no, Körperlichkeit, my god, this is like all German legal stuff. So basically you have to use your, like in sports legally, there has to be like a body movement element of it. You have to sweat or something, I don't know. So there has to be an element of just movement, body, physical movement things. I don't know. Which is funny because, like, so if StarCraft 2 esports isn't a sport, right? It's not enough body movement for you. How's golf sports? I mean, so let me quote Harry Bosch in the great TV show Bosch on Amazon. In one episode, his partner is like on a driving range and they're talking about sports. And Bosch is like, golf is not a sport. Anything we can smoke and drink while you're doing it's not a sport. Now, I can get down with that definition. By that definition, esports not a sport. But then so isn't golf. And as you know, basically somebody points out here from the German another sports thing. This is actually the eSport Bund, the ESBD. The president is saying, well, this is all bull crap because, the Olympic Committee recognizes archery and table tennis and darts and, footy, table football, You know, or table tennis. It's not table tennis. It's just table football. Like what do you call that? Anyway, that you know, that's sports. Yeah, how's that sport? Like, how are you moving your hand in darts? How's this movement? Right, you're holding a pint, right? You're going like this. How is that more movement than playing Fortnite? I'd say if you measure it, Fortnite's more movement. So I'm down with this guy. I think that's great. Esports isn't sports. Jesus Christ. If they don't have any other problems. Yeah. I mean darts. I'm saying either it's sport or we go with the Bosch definition and then. By the way, people on Twitter were saying we're discussing this. I was posting about this morning, and we're basically saying looks like chess isn't sports either. So at least that doesn't fit the definition. Madness. Speaking of madness, Star Citizen had a VIP event in Frankfurt where you could pay $275 to sit down with the game's developers and Chris Roberts for a dinner and talk to them. But not any old pleb like me could spend $275 to do that. You had to be part of the concierge club. And to have concierge status with Star Citizen, you have to have spent $1,000 on like JPEG ships, and then you can pay $275 to have a dinner with Chris Roberts. And these tickets were sold out in seconds. So the hype train, the delusion is still going over full steam in the Star Citizen camp. Obviously, raised $233 million so far. They also had a ship, a special. So if you had concierge status, you could buy a special ship. So if you think $275 for a dinner is a lot of money, think $675 for a special edition of a starship that doesn't even exist and is not even in the game because it's not finished. Because it's just a very high resolution 3D model. Maybe not even that. Maybe it's even just a JPEG. But that was a special edition. You could also buy the normal edition of that ship. It's also $675.